Last week, Nigel Farage said they offered a credible alternative to the main parties.
He says UKIP offers voters serious, fully costed policies, and its manifesto includes plans for a referendum on Britain's membership of the EU, an overhaul of the immigration system, and an extra £3 billion a year for the NHS in England.
Well, in the latest of our party leader interviews ahead of the election, we can speak to Nigel Farage now. Good morning to you, Mr. Farage. Thanks very much for joining us. I'd like to start, first of all, if you could, about this terrible story unfolding in the Mediterranean. What do you think Britain's responsibility is right now?
Well, our responsibility is very heavy. We very stupidly, with President Sarkozy, launched into a war without thinking what the consequences would be. We destabilised Libya. We have directly led to a situation where, for Christians in particular, the country has become virtually unlivable in, and we bear a very heavy responsibility. Now, what we're seeing are very large numbers of people attempting to cross the Mediterranean, people drowning. I think what we should be doing is redirecting some of the money we spend on foreign aid, some of the money we give to Brussels, to actually helping people in those countries. I'd equally be very happy if we sent what's left of the Royal Navy to go and try and help people who are in such plight. But the big message has to come from Italy. The big message has to come from Greece. And the Australian Prime Minister said yesterday, unless you send a message that you're not going to unconditionally accept unlimited numbers of people, they will keep coming. That's not our decision, but that is a decision that's got to be taken by those southern Mediterranean countries. And unless they take that, then, I mean, goodness knows what numbers of people might attempt to come. OK,
so just a couple of things to pick up on that. So are you talking about the UK being involved in rescue operations?
I'm always happy if the United Kingdom gets involved in genuine humanitarian work. Of course I am. But as I say, what is the message from Italy? What is the message from Greece? Is it that anybody that comes will be accepted? Because if it is, they could be looking at millions of people coming over the course of the next couple of years.
Are you suggesting then that they should be turning back ships as the Australians do?
I'm suggesting that they should be making sure that those people coming in vessels that are not seaworthy are put on vessels that are seaworthy and taken back to where they come from. There may be some cases where people genuinely need refugee status, and if Britain has to give a helping hand, and if we have to give, for example, some Christians refugee status, given that with Iraq, Libya, there's almost nowhere for them to go, then fine. But you can't, Europe can't send a message that everybody that comes will be accepted. Okay. If it does, then the numbers we're talking about here could literally be millions.
And you are saying, therefore, that the UK should only accept Christians as refugees?
Well, I'm saying we can make a gesture. And we could give refugee status to a few people, and I'm highlighting the plight of the Christians. We have made their lives almost unlivable in those countries. We bear a very, very heavy burden of guilt for that.
And just before we move on, would you put a number on that? How many refugees are you talking about?
Well, I would suggest a few thousand, because frankly, again, we as a country can't take unlimited numbers of people. But the real problem is that potentially millions of people may come to southern Europe, and as we're part of the European Union, the Prime Minister is going to be under intense pressure on Thursday for us to take really very big numbers, and I'm afraid we simply can't do that. OK,
so much to talk to you about. Let's talk about, of course, one of your main manifesto priorities, which is a rapid referendum on Britain's membership of the European Union. At the moment, the only way voters who want a referendum will get one is if the Conservatives are in office.
Well, Mr Cameron has been against having a referendum for many years. He was forced into changing that position when he saw the rise of UKIP. The difficulty is he wants to push that referendum into the long grass. He wants it to be after a so-called renegotiation that the European bosses have already said they won't negotiate the big issues. And my fear is this: if Mr Cameron had a free hand to hold a referendum, it would be nothing much more than a stitch-up. If you actually want to have a full, free and fair referendum, the only way it'll happen is if you have enough UKIP MPs in the House of Commons to make sure the rules are fair and to make sure we get that referendum, and we get it this year.
But the only way is if they are in office. But let's move on to the NHS if we could. As I say, so much to talk about. The NHS, a big battleground. Chief Executive of NHS England saying it needs £8 billion to stand still. UKIP, you're offering £3 billion. So will there have to be cuts made? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have so far far been the only party to give a costed proposal for how we can increase NHS spending, and we've said the figure is £3 billion. The other parties are spraying around billions like confetti without even explaining where that money will come from. And I've made it very clear that one of the ways we can save money is to stop health tourism. You know, this is a national health service, it's not an international health service, and I genuinely believe that it's unacceptable for us to be telling people who need cancer drugs we can't afford to give it to them, whilst we're allowing people to come in from all over the world to receive expensive medication. This is about priorities. This is about putting our own people first.
And the King's Fund, and I'm sure I know you know the figures better than I do, saying that health tourism, as you put it, costs between 60 million and 80 million a year, and that's compared to an NHS budget of 113 billion. I also want to ask you...
I'm sorry, that figure is utterly ludicrous. Health tourism is costing up to £1.8 billion a year, and we could easily save over £1 billion of that.
I also want to ask you from a sort of personal point of view as well, you know, we're some weeks into this campaign. Are you enjoying it?
Yes, I am, although I must say the disappointment for me is just how negative the whole thing. Every day I listen to the newspapers and one party says don't vote for that party and the other party says don't vote for that party. If you vote for X, you might get Y. And what we're not hearing is we're not hearing political parties say vote for us because we have a vision, vote for us because we believe in something. And I'm trying to keep UKIP out of this Punch and Judy show, and I'm saying vote for us. We believe in Britain. We've got a plan to get back the self-government of our country, control of our borders, an Australian-style point system, and we're the only party to show that by cutting foreign aid, by cutting excessive spending, such as the Barnett formula where we give too much money to Scotland, by doing these things, we can give British people, hard-working people, real tax cuts to boost the economy. So I am trying to be positive, but almost nobody else appears to want to play that game.
OK, and if you don't get a seat, you've said yourself you'll stand down as UKIP leader. What will you do next?
Do you know, I was out last night knocking on doors in the seat in which I'm fighting, and I think things are going extremely well. I think UKIP is holding up remarkably well in the polls. Our vote is firming over the course of the last couple of weeks. In our target seats, we're doing well. And the one thing about UKIP is all the so-called experts have underplayed us at every election for the last 3 years. They've underestimated our potential. They're doing so again, and I think we are going to surprise people.
Nigel Farage, UKIP leader, thanks for your time this morning here on Breakfast.
Thank you.